Are you ready for the ultimate second-hand embarrassment? Because Claressa Shield's absolute house of cards isn't just falling down anymore. It has officially imploded into the single saddest, most desperate public meltdown in modern pop culture history. We all thought we'd seen it all in the messy saga between the self-proclaimed Jolie Papoose and the looming shadow of Remy Ma, but what just went down on a live broadcast has left jaws dropped across the entire internet. Imagine being an Olympic gold medalist, a multi-divisional world champion boxer with undisputed legacy in your hands, only to get caught red-handed sneaking into a live hood champion boxing stream, pretending to be an anonymous fan just to defend your own honor. Let's face it, we all know that voice. It is one of the most distinct, unmistakable voices in the world, yet there she was completely failing to change her pitch, attempting to speak in the third person before losing her mind, slipping into the first person and screaming, "Why are y'all always doing this to me?" It is giving full-blown, unchecked side chick delusion at a dangerous breaking point. She thought she could slickly skirt her foul behavior under the rug, play the ultimate victim, and gaslight the entire world into forgetting that she was the one who allegedly snuck into Remy Ma's DMs asking for fashion advice, only to slide straight into Papoose's DMs right after. But the mask didn't just slip. It was violently ripped off, and the internet is refusing to let her look away. The deception runs so deep that we have to pull back the curtain on how this entire calculated, chaotic universe began to unspool before our very eyes. When you look at the trajectory of a world-class athlete, who literally clawed her way up from the absolute bottom to achieve historic greatness in the ring, it makes you wonder how everything could get so violently derailed by a single desperate obsession. People didn't sign up to watch an undisputed champion reduce her entire brand to an endless cycle of late-night digital warfare. But that is exactly where we find ourselves today. The whispers behind the scenes have transformed into an absolute roar as industry insiders, leaked text threads, and anonymous sources close to the camp begin to paint a picture of total unadulterated chaos. This isn't just about a bad relationship or a temporary lapse in judgment. This is about an individual who has completely allowed her reality to be hijacked by a man who refuses to even look her in the eye when the cameras are rolling. The roots of this obsession trace back to a pattern of behavior that many tried to warn her about, yet every piece of sound counsel was immediately branded as malicious hate. We are talking about a pattern of stepping into spaces where you simply do not belong, starting with those infamous deceptive social media interactions that set this entire wildfire ablaze. The leaked reports circulating within the boxing and entertainment communities suggest that the initial crossover into Remy Ma's digital territory wasn't an accident or a harmless professional inquiry. Sources claim it was a highly strategic, incredibly sneaky attempt to study the blueprint of a legendary hip-hop marriage before actively attempting to dismantle it from the inside out. For months, the public watched in absolute disbelief as the narrative shifted from athletic excellence to a messy, low-budget soap opera featuring a married man who seems to highly enjoy the benefits of a champion's platform while offering absolutely zero protection in return. To truly understand the gravity of how foul this situation has become, we have to look at the massive trail of professional devastation left in the wake of this affair. Corporate sponsors who were once lining up with multi-million-dollar endorsement deals for the undisputed champ are now reportedly sprinting in the opposite direction. Internal memos leaked from major athletic apparel brands reveal that executives are completely horrified by the constant, unhinged public outbursts and the toxic association with a highly publicized, unresolved marriage. The brand managers explicitly stated that they cannot align their corporate image with someone who represents herself as an apex predator in the ring, but behaves like a frantic, defensive side chick on the internet. Millions of dollars in potential earnings have vanished into thin air, all because of an inability to step away from a situation that yields absolutely nothing but public humiliation and emotional depletion. But the financial bleeding doesn't even compare to the spiritual and ethical hypocrisy that has left the core fanbase feeling completely betrayed and disgusted. This is a public figure who constantly utilizes the name of the Almighty to validate her success, frequently posting about being highly favored and uniquely blessed by divine intervention. Yet, the moment the cameras turn off, the behavior displayed is entirely antithetical to those sacred principles, revealing a deep-seated inner turmoil that no amount of championship gold can mask. We saw the true colors fly during that infamous holiday charity event, a toy drive meant to bring joy to underprivileged children, which instead turned into an absolute exhibition of unchecked tyranny. Reports from eyewitnesses and community organizers confirmed that when confronted by a personal adversary, the small, still voice of reason was completely ignored in favor of a malicious, retaliatory tantrum. During that horrific holiday incident, innocent children were weaponized and physically ejected from a community space, denied basic gifts, all because an elite athlete couldn't control her fragile ego. The fallout from that single event sent shockwaves through her hometown, destroying years of grassroots goodwill in a matter of seconds. Instead of taking accountability, apologizing to the families, and attempting to heal the community, the response was a textbook display of gaslighting and defensive victimhood. She scrambled onto every available platform to claim that her words were twisted, that she was the one being targeted, and that the public simply didn't understand the pressures of her position. It was a masterclass in dodging consequences, a frantic effort to sweep immense cruelty under the rug while expecting the world to continue cheering for her athletic endeavors. This exact same defensive mechanism is what led to the absolute disaster on the recent anonymous phone call that has the entire digital world laughing in unison. When you are forced to call into a prominent boxing stream under a false identity, trying and failing miserably to disguise your voice, it signals an individual who has reached the absolute end of her rope. The leaked audio files, which have now been analyzed by audio forensic hobbyists across social media, prove that the desperation was so overwhelming, she couldn't even maintain the third person live for more than 2 minutes. She entered the stream trying to sound like an objective, concerned bystander asking why the public is always persecuting a champion, only to immediately slip up and begin screaming first-person defenses. It was an incredibly sad, profoundly embarrassing spectacle that exposed just how fragile the illusion of her confidence truly is. The ultimate tragedy of this entire downfall is that the married man at the center of her obsession is actively using her distress to rebuild his own fading relevance. While she is out here destroying her reputation, fighting bloggers in comment sections, and alienating major corporations, he is sitting back and collecting the clout. The inner circle reports that her management team has practically begged her to see the reality of the situation, presenting her with clear evidence that she is being utilized as a financial and promotional shield. Yet, she remains completely blind to the manipulation, fiercely defending a dynamic that leaves her entirely unprotected whenever real controversy strikes. The public can see the truth clearly, the commentators are shouting it from the rooftops, and yet the house of cards continues to wobble violently as we move deeper into the dark, hidden details of this corporate and personal collapse. Every single time a major celebrity or an internet powerhouse shines a light on this disastrous dynamic, the reaction from her camp is one of chaotic desperation rather than dignified silence. Look at what transpired when a massive global superstar like 50 Cent decided to share that brutal, AI-generated parody highlighting the exact nature of her relationship. A meme of that magnitude, blasted out to tens of millions of people, required a strong protective stance from the man who claims to have her back in every aspect of life. Instead of standing up as a shield, instead of demanding respect for the woman who has dedicated her entire world to him, he chose that exact moment to launch a self-serving rap battle to show off his own lyrical skills. He completely ignored the humiliation being heaped upon her, choosing instead to protect his own precious ego and ensure his own name remained trending in the headlines. The internal tension behind closed doors after that specific internet blowout was reportedly explosive, with shouting matches echoing through training camps. Sources close to the situation reveal that she felt deeply abandoned, privately weeping over the lack of public support, while publicly putting on a brave face for her followers. She even let the truth slip during a frantic social media caption, claiming that he had promised to handle the situation internally, which is why she initially stayed quiet. But as the hours rolled on and no defense materialized, she was forced to step into the mud once again, single-handedly battling millions of trolls while he basked in the glory of his new viral rap verses. This is the exact pattern that has repeated itself throughout their entire association, a relentless cycle of her absorbing the blows while he reaps the benefits. The contrast between how this man protects his legal wife versus how he discards his current partner is the ultimate source of her psychological undoing. The world witnessed it clearly during that high-profile holiday broadcast when the conversation drifted toward a comparison between the two women. The moment a boundary was threatened, the moment his wife's name was even slightly compromised, he moved with absolute, terrifying swiftness to shut the conversation down completely. There was no hesitation, no subtlety, and no regard for the feelings of the champion sitting right next to him. He made it abundantly clear where his ultimate loyalty resides. That public display of rejection planted a seed of bitter resentment that has grown into the dangerous, toxic obsession we are witnessing play out in real time today. She is trapped in an endless loop of trying to prove that she is not second place, trying to convince herself and the world that she has won a prize that isn't even available for the taking. This desperation has led to an intense, highly dangerous fixation on replicating the life, the style, and the exact marital dynamic that her rival spent decades building. The constant surveillance of her predecessor's digital footprint, the mimicry of her fashion choices, and the sudden aggressive pivot into reality television-style drama are all symptoms of a much deeper psychological crisis. She is no longer fighting for legacy or championships. She is fighting a losing battle against a ghost, a legal reality that she can never outrun no matter how many fights she wins. The desperation has escalated to the point where even global icons like Rihanna cannot escape being dragged into the orbit of this unhinged delusion. When a simple, light-hearted social media comment about marital devotion was posted by the pop billionaire, it was instantly hijacked and misinterpreted as a form of personal validation. The champion rushed to her keyboard to claim that her highly controversial, messy situation was somehow equivalent to a healthy, globally celebrated partnership. It was an incredibly delusional leap that left onlookers completely baffled, further cementing the reality that she is entirely detached from the objective truth of her circumstances. She is desperately looking for any sign, any scrap of approval from high-profile figures to convince herself that her chaotic lifestyle is justifiable. But the most damning evidence of this crumbling facade occurred just hours ago at the official press conference for the highly anticipated upcoming match against Franchon Cruz-Dezurn. What was supposed to be a showcase of elite athletic prowess, a moment to restore confidence in her boxing supremacy, was completely hijacked by a bizarre, self-serving musical performance. The married boyfriend took the center stage microphone, completely eclipsing the main event, to deliver an incredibly awkward, deeply manipulative freestyle rap that left the entire room in stunned silence. The lyrics were a blatant, desperate attempt to repair his own damaged public image, shouting about how he pays all the bills in full and never forces anyone to split expenses. He briefly mentioned her name as an afterthought, barely making eye contact before executing a series of highly performative gestures for the flashing cameras. The body language displayed at that press conference spoke louder than any verse he could ever utter, exposing the profound disconnect at the core of this arrangement. He briefly hoisted her hand into the air to acknowledge her status, only to drop it with an icy immediate coldness the exact second the primary photo opportunity passed. There was no genuine warmth, no authentic connection, and no trace of the profound love he was loudly boasting about into the microphone. It was a cold, calculated business transaction executed on a public stage, designed entirely to combat the narrative that he is financially exploiting an elite athlete. She stood there absorbing the empty gestures, forcing a smile for the media, while the entire world watched her historic legacy being systematically dismantled by an intruder who has completely infiltrated her professional sanctuary. The fallout from that press conference has sent shockwaves through the inner sanctum of the Athletic Commission, triggering whispered conversations about whether an intervention is necessary. Prominent trainers and retired legends are quietly voicing their concerns to sports journalists, noting that a fighter's focus is their ultimate weapon, and hers is completely shattered. The camp is reportedly split down the middle, with long-term coaches who have been there since day one feeling pushed to the margins by the constant presence of this marital drama. The environment that once bred focused, historic victories has transformed into a toxic reality television set, where the next viral clip takes priority over actual ring strategy. Behind the scenes, the financial implications of this continuous circus are becoming a harsh reality as financial analysts audit the championship accounts. Reports suggest that huge sums of capital are being redirected into vanity projects and lifestyle maintenance designed to keep her partner appeased and visible. The lavish spending on public displays of wealth, aimed entirely at silencing critics who say he is taking advantage of her, is draining resources that should be secured for her retirement. The irony of the situation is incredibly loud, as the performance of paying the full bill on camera is reportedly being funded by the very legacy she is risking in the process. The upcoming battle against Franchon Cruz Dezern is no longer just a sports match. It has become a high-stakes referendum on her entire mental stability. Critics are openly pointing out that her previous performance was a shadow of her former self, lacking the crisp execution and relentless drive that defined her rise. The boxing community is actively predicting that if she enters the ring with her mind still trapped in internet comment sections, an upset of historic proportions is almost guaranteed. Yet, instead of locking herself in an isolated training camp away from the digital noise, she remains aggressively active online, checking every notification and replying to obscure accounts. The psychological toll of living in a perpetual state of defensive warfare is manifesting in increasingly volatile public interactions. Close associates claim that she is suffering from severe sleep deprivation, staying awake until the early hours of the morning to watch video essays analyzing her personal life. The constant need to validate her choices has created an echo chamber where any friend offering objective truth is immediately cut off and labeled an enemy. This isolation has only tightened the grip of the married man at the center of the storm, leaving her with no objective voices to pull her back from the edge of the cliff. Leaked communications from prominent sports marketing agencies reveal that major networks are growing increasingly nervous about the promotional rollout for the winter sports calendar. Television executives are reportedly drafting contingency clauses in broadcasting contracts to protect their networks from potential public relations disasters. The fear that an unhinged outburst could occur during a live, prime-time promotional event has corporate lawyers on high alert, creating an atmosphere of extreme tension. A career that should be celebrated on billboards across the globe is instead being treated as a high-risk liability by the biggest power players in the industry. Meanwhile, the legal realities of the situation continue to loom like a dark cloud that no amount of social media posturing can dissipate. Legal experts specializing in high-profile family law point out that as long as the marriage contract remains legally binding, any public association carries massive financial and reputational risks. The constant public taunting and comparison games are creating a hostile digital environment that could easily be utilized in ongoing courtroom proceedings behind closed doors. The sheer recklessness of flaunting a relationship with an individual who is still legally tied to another household is a strategic disaster that continues to baffle public relations professionals. The social media landscape has transformed into a digital coliseum where every single post she publishes is instantly picked apart for signs of weakness. When she shared a motivational quote about overcoming betrayal and standing strong in her faith, the public response was not one of inspiration, but of widespread exhaustion. The comments were flooded with fans begging her to wake up, reminding her that true peace does not require a daily, multi-paragraph defense on Instagram. The tragedy lies in the fact that she views this public concern as a coordinated campaign of hate, completely failing to see that her Day One supporters are grieving the loss of their champion. The obsession has reached such a desperate peak that even minor interactions between her partner and his legal family are causing immediate digital ripples. Whenever a throwback video or a family milestone involving his child is shared online, an immediate retaliatory post appears on her profile showcasing an artificial level of happiness. This reactive behavior pattern proves that the narrative is completely controlling her mood, dictating how she moves, what she wears, and how she presents her life to the world. It is an exhausting way to live, especially for an athlete who requires peak physical and mental condition to survive in one of the most brutal sports on earth. As the weeks progress toward the winter showdown, the sparring sessions behind closed doors are reportedly growing increasingly tense and unproductive. Independent observers who manage to catch glimpses of the training sessions note that the explosive speed is present, but the tactical discipline is completely missing. She is fighting with anger rather than strategy, throwing wild combinations that leave her dangerously exposed to a counterattack. The coaches are seen shouting instructions that seem to bounce off her, as her attention remains divided between the ring and the entourage sitting at the side of the gym. The presence of her partner at the training facilities has created an atmosphere of profound discomfort among the athletic staff who have dedicated their lives to her success. He reportedly offers unsolicited advice on training regimens and media strategy, acting as an uncertified manager despite having zero background in elite athletic conditioning. The tension between the seasoned boxing experts and the hip-hop personality is reaching a boiling point, with several key team members threatening to walk out before the fight. The entire operation is running on pure momentum, held together by a fragile thread that could snap at any moment. The online commentators who have been documenting this saga from the beginning are noting that the rhetoric is shifting from playful gossip to genuine concern. Podcasters are dedicating entire episodes to analyzing the psychological manipulation taking place, breaking down the specific ways her vulnerability is being exploited for cultural relevance. The consensus across the digital space is that this is a classic cautionary tale of an incredibly strong woman who possesses a singular, devastating blind spot. The tragedy is that the more the public tries to point out the trap, the harder she presses her foot onto the accelerator, speeding toward an inevitable crash. The corporate fallout expanded further this week when a luxury vehicle brand quietly declined to renew an endorsement contract that had been in place for 2 years. The decision, though masked as a standard corporate restructuring, was directly attributed to the negative sentiment scores surrounding her current public image. Internal data shared among marketing firms indicates that her relatability metrics have plummeted significantly over the last 6 months, driven entirely by the toxic personal narratives. The wealth she is fighting so hard to display on camera is being systematically eroded by the loss of these major corporate lifelines. Even within her home community, the perception of her as a hometown hero is undergoing a painful and highly visible transformation. The youth programs and local boxing clubs that once looked up to her as a beacon of discipline and focus are finding it increasingly difficult to defend her behavior. Parents are expressing discomfort with the idea of their young daughters modeling themselves after an individual who publicly romanticizes chaotic, extramarital dynamics. The grassroots support that formed the foundation of her early career is quietly eroding, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that speaks volumes. The desperation to control the narrative led to another disastrous digital incident yesterday, when a supposedly leaked audio snippet from an inner circle meeting made its rounds on gossip blogs. The audio features a voice remarkably similar to hers, venting an absolute frustration about how she is tired of carrying the emotional weight of 2 different households. The raw vulnerability in the recording completely shattered the tough, unbothered persona she tries so hard to project during her daily live streams. It provided a terrifyingly clear window into the immense pressure cooker she is living in, trapped between the public illusion of a perfect romance and the harsh reality of an empty, unsupportive dynamic. As the pressure continues to mount from every conceivable angle, the house of cards is no longer just shaking, the foundation itself is beginning to fracture under the weight of the delusion. Every strategic move made to repair the damage only seems to amplify the chaos, leaving the champion isolated in a storm of her own making. The countdown to the next major athletic test is ticking away, and yet the primary focus remains locked on a battle that can never be won in the court of public opinion. The story is rapidly approaching a critical junction where the illusion must finally shatter, setting the stage for the final, chaotic unfolding of this modern pop culture tragedy. The fracture of this foundation has now reached the ultimate tipping point as the date of the championship match approaches. Prominent athletic board members have reportedly held emergency meetings to discuss the potential fallout if the main event falls through due to personal instability. The rumors traveling through athletic circles indicate that her training camp is in a state of absolute, irreversible desertion. Longtime associates who stood by her through poverty and early defeats have completely walked out, unable to watch the systematic destruction of a once legendary career. The gym that once echoed with the sounds of intense focus and championship discipline is now completely quiet, occupied only by an entourage that cares far more about social media metrics than athletic excellence. The economic reality of this continuous downward spiral has officially caught up with the luxury lifestyle she tries so hard to project on her social media channels. Financial institutions are reportedly reviewing outstanding loans and asset portfolios tied to her name, as the sudden loss of corporate sponsorships has left a massive deficit in her cash flow. The lavish gifts, the public displays of financial dominance, and the theatrical press conference performances have created a massive mountain of debt that is rapidly becoming unmanageable. Sources close to the financial team reveal that she has been forced to quietly liquidate several long-term investments just to maintain the appearance of wealth for her partner. The psychological warfare between the champion and the online community has reached an unprecedented level of mutual hostility. During a recent late-night broadcast, she completely abandoned all professional restraint, launching into an unhinged tirade against random commenters who questioned her relationship choices. The composure that made her a terrifying force in the boxing ring was nowhere to be found, replaced instead by a frantic, trembling defensiveness that left viewers deeply uncomfortable. She spent hours pacing around a dimly lit room, holding up her championship belts to the camera, while screaming that the world was trying to tear down a successful black woman. The tragic irony of her shouting into a phone screen while her partner remained completely absent from the home was not lost on the audience. While she was destroying her remaining public dignity in front of thousands of live viewers, he was reportedly spotted at a high-profile industry event in New York, laughing and networking with major music executives. The complete lack of alignment between her public defense of their union and his total disregard for her emotional state has become the central talking point of the entire entertainment industry. Podcasters are openly calling out the absolute cruelty of the dynamic, noting that he allows her to act as a human shield for his fading reputation, while offering absolutely nothing in return. The corporate backlash intensified significantly this morning, when a major global streaming network decided to pause production on an upcoming sports documentary centering on her life. The production company issued an internal memo stating that the current narrative surrounding the athlete has strayed too far from an inspiring sports story, transforming instead into a highly toxic, legally risky domestic drama. Directors and producers who had spent months filming her journey expressed deep sadness over the cancellation, noting that the footage from the last 3 months was completely unusable due to the constant presence of explosive arguments and emotional breakdowns behind the scenes. As the digital walls close in, the legal team representing the legal wife has reportedly begun monitoring the champion's public statements for potential defamation claims. The constant, thinly veiled insults hurled during live streams and the desperate attempts to minimize a decades-long marriage have created a substantial paper trail that could easily be weaponized in a court of law. Legal advisors have warned her that she is playing an incredibly dangerous game, as a high-profile lawsuit from a respected industry veteran would completely erase whatever goodwill she has left with the public. Yet, the obsession remains so overpowering that she continues to push the boundaries, seemingly addicted to the high-stakes friction. The digital landscape has now shifted from mockery to a strange, heavy sense of collective grief for a fallen icon. Fans who once traveled across the country to witness her historic victories are now flooding sports forums with open letters, begging her to find a trusted spiritual advisor or a professional counselor. They are pointing out that the constant need to prove she is not second place is the very thing that is cementing her status as a secondary thought in the mind of her partner. The public can see with perfect clarity that she is fighting a war against a reality that cannot be altered by internet captions or performative press conferences. The tension within the boxing community has reached a fever pitch as her opponent, Franchon Cruz Dezern, capitalizes beautifully on the chaotic media rollout. In recent promotional interviews, the challenger has remained entirely focused on athletic strategy, displaying a level of calm professionalism that contrasts sharply with the champion's digital hysteria. Sports analysts are openly predicting that the match will be a short, devastating affair, as one fighter is training their body, while the other is exhausting their mind in internet arguments. The psychological advantage has completely shifted, leaving the champion exposed to an athletic humbling of historic proportions. Even the local organizations in her hometown have begun quietly removing her image from promotional banners and youth mentorship materials. The tragic fallout from the holiday charity incident, where underprivileged children were caught in the crossfire of her personal vendetta, has left a permanent stain on her local legacy. Community leaders expressed deep regret over the decision, but stated that they cannot present a volatile, defensive individual as a role model for young children striving to overcome adversity. The ultimate tragedy is that she remains completely oblivious to this localized shift, choosing instead to believe that the entire world is simply envious of her divine favor. The desperation to project an illusion of marital bliss led to an incredibly awkward social media post earlier today, featuring a staged photograph of the couple holding hands at a private dinner. The image, which was clearly intended to silence the rumors of an impending breakup, had the exact opposite effect on the public. Analytical followers quickly noticed the stiff body language, the forced smiles, and the profound emptiness in their eyes, pointing out that the image felt more like a hostage situation than a romantic evening. The internet instantly transformed the photograph into a viral meme, further amplifying the ridicule she was trying so hard to escape. As the final weeks of the winter sports calendar tick away, the corporate executives who manage the broadcasting rights are reportedly preparing for a worst-case scenario. Contingency plans are being put in place to elevate a secondary fight to the main event slot, if her mental state prevents her from clearing the final medical and psychological evaluations. The financial risk to the network is immense, but the reputational risk of allowing a completely unraveled athlete to step into a professional ring is deemed far greater by corporate compliance officers. A career that should have concluded in the Hall of Fame is instead being handled with hazmat suits by the most powerful entities in entertainment. The ultimate realization of this tragedy is that the house of cards has already fallen. She is simply standing in the rubble, refusing to acknowledge the debris around her feet. The married man who promised to protect her has successfully used her platform to revitalize his own name, leaving her to absorb the full force of the public backlash. The brands have departed, the fans are grieving, the hometown support has evaporated, and the historic athletic legacy is hovering on the absolute brink of total destruction. The stage is set for a massive, unavoidable collision with reality, and the world is watching with bated breath to see if the champion will finally wake up, or if she will allow the delusion to pull her under completely. Drop a comment down below and let me know your absolute, unfiltered thoughts on this complete and utter disaster. Is Claressa Shields completely beyond the point of saving, or do you think she can somehow snap out of this deep delusion, dump the married clout chaser, and actually salvage what is left of her historic boxing legacy before it completely implodes in the ring? Do you think Papoose is the ultimate mastermind user of the century, or is she just entirely responsible for her own spectacular public undoing? If you are sick and tired of these celebrities putting all their absolute filth out into the world and acting like they are completely above accountability, make sure you smash that like button right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on those post notifications so you never, ever miss another deep dive expose into the wild, messy truth behind these crumbling houses of cards. We are holding up the light and exposing the absolute madness every single day. So stay locked in, share this video with everyone you know, and drop your theories in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Keep your eyes wide open, and we will catch you in the very next breakdown.